The knock came just after midnight, sharp and uncertain, the kind that makes your heart jump before your mind catches up. Emily Carter froze in her quiet Ohio living room. The TV glowing with a muted late-night news loop, snow tapping the windows like nervous fingers. She wasn't expecting anyone. She hadn't been expecting anything for a long time. When she opened the door, the cold rushed in on, so did Lucas Miller. Her nephew, breath visible, eyes wide, carrying a weight that didn't belong to a 19-year-old mature. "I didn't know where else to go," he said, voice thin but steady enough to stand on. Maplewood was the kind of town that slept early and judged softly but remembered forever. Emily knew what it meant to open a door here. She stepped aside anyway. Lucas crossed the threshold like someone stepping onto a bridge, unsure if it would hold. The house smelled like tea and old books. Emily's place had become quieter since the divorce, quieter than she ever admitted to herself. Lucas stood awkwardly, hands in his jacket pockets, scanning the walls. He paused at a photo of Emily, smiling beside a waterfall in Canada. Hair wind-tossed, eyes bright with a joy that felt borrowed now. "You can take your coat off," Emily said. "You're safe." Safe. The word landed. Lucas nodded and obeyed. He looked older than the boy who used to skateboard down her driveway. Older than the kid who begged for pancakes on Sunday mornings. College had chewed him up and spit him back home without a plan. His parents were busy arguing about money and pride. Friends were moving forward without him. Lucas had been shrinking quietly. Emily poured tea. She didn't ask questions right away. Silence could be a kindness if you let it be. Lucas stared into his cup like it might answer him. "I feel invisible," he said suddenly. "Like I'm standing in a room full of people and nobody can hear me." Emily felt the pull in her chest. She knew that room. She'd lived in it during her marriage, smiling on the outside, fading on the inside. She sat across from him, hands wrapped around her mug, grounding herself. "Talk to me," she said. "Start anywhere." Lucas took a breath. Words spilled out fast, tumbling over each other. He talked about quitting classes, about failing a test he didn't study for because he didn't see the point. About waking up late and feeling like the day was already lost. He talked about his dad's disappointment and his mom's worry, how both sounded the same after a while. He talked about fear of being ordinary, fear of being stuck, fear of being forgotten. "I don't need fixing," he said, almost angry. "I just need someone to see me." Emily listened without interrupting. She'll let him finish. When he stopped, the room felt heavier but clearer, like air after a storm. "What do you want from me?" she asked carefully. Lucas hesitated. His eyes flicked away, then back. "I want you to believe in me," he said, "like before. When I was a kid and you said I could be anything. I want help figuring out my next step. I don't know. I want to feel like my life still matters." The clock ticked loudly on the wall. Emily thought about boundaries, about the promises she'd made to herself after learning how easy it was to give too much of the wrong kind of care. She thought about how love could blur if you weren't paying attention. She stayed still. "Belief is not the same as rescue," she said. "And help is not the same as escape." Lucas nodded, not fully understanding but willing to listen. Emily stood and opened the curtains. Snow blanketed the street, clean and bright under the streetlights. "We can talk," she said. "We can tell the truth, but I won't pretend this is something it's not." Lucas swallowed. "I don't want pretending. They talk for hours. Not in circles. Not in speeches." Emily asked simple questions. What did Lucas enjoy before he got tired of trying? What scared him the most? What did success look like if nobody was watching? He answered honestly. He said he liked working with his hands. He said he was scared of choosing wrong. He said success felt like waking up without dread. When the power flickered back on, Dawn was already thinking about arriving. Lucas's shoulders had dropped. The knot in his jaw loosened. He looked like someone who had set a heavy bag down. "You can stay the night," Emily said. "We'll make a plan in the morning." He slept on the couch. Emily lay awake upstairs, listening to the house breathe. She knew this moment mattered. She knew the wrong choice could tangle things that should remain clear. She promised herself she would choose the kind of care that didn't confuse it. Morning came fast. Coffee brewed. The world returned. They sat at the kitchen table with notebooks and phones. Emily didn't lecture. She organized. She suggested. She listened. They talked about part-time work and night classes, about talking to someone trained to help untangle thoughts without shame. Lucas asked questions. He wrote things down. "I thought you'd be mad," he admitted. "Why?" Emily asked. "Because I messed up." Emily smiled gently. Messing up is not the same as being lost forever. He smiled back, smaller but real. Later, Lucas stood by the door, backpack slung over his shoulder. "Thank you," he said, "for not making this weird." Emily met his eyes. "Thank you for asking for help the right way." He left with a plan, thin but sturdy. Emily closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling. She felt tired and steady at the same time. That afternoon, her phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. "Got an interview tomorrow. I'm scared. Also kind of excited." Emily typed back, "Both are allowed." As the sun dipped, Emily walked the neighborhood, snow crunching under her boots. She thought about how love showed up. Sometimes it arrived as warmth, sometimes as structure, sometimes as saying no to what felt easy, so yes could mean something later. That night, another knock came not on her door, but inside her chest. A reminder that she was still healing too, still choosing herself. She didn't open old photos. She didn't replay old arguments. She made dinner, read a chapter, went to bed. Across town, Lucas studied interview tips and practiced answers in the mirror. He wasn't fixed. He wasn't saved. But he was seen. And for now, that was enough. The next morning would bring choices neither of them expected. But for the first time in months, both were ready to meet them. The first time Emily saw Lucas smile like he used to, she didn't believe it was real. It was the kind of smile that had been missing for months. It's the kind that looked like a person remembering they could still breathe. She'd been waiting for that moment without knowing it, and when it arrived, it felt like the world had tilted just slightly back into place. But she also knew that smiles could be fragile. They could break if you held them too tightly. Lucas had been working part-time at a hardware store, saving money and feeling a new kind of pride. He had started night classes at the community college, learning things that made his eyes shine again. He wasn't perfect. He still had bad days. But he was moving. Emily watched from a distance, careful not to smother him with attention, but proud in a way she didn't know how to say. One night, he showed up at her door with a flyer and a nervous grin. "I got into the class," he said. "The one I wanted." Emily took the flyer and read it, feeling her chest tighten with relief. "That's great," she said. "I'm proud of you." Luke hesitated, then said, "I wanted to ask you something else." "Okay," Emily braced herself. She'd learned to listen before assuming. "What is it?" Lucas looked down, then back up. "I want to take a trip." Emily blinked. "A trip?" "To Vancouver," he said. "There's a program there, a mentorship. I know it's far, but it's a real chance." Emily felt a rush of emotions, fear, pride, hope, and the ache of letting go. She knew Lucas needed to build his own life, not stay anchored to her house like a safety net. But she also knew he was scared. She could see it in his hands. "I'll support you," she said carefully, "but I won't pretend it's easy." Lucas nodded. "I know." They made a plan. Emily helped him apply, helped him save, helped him find a counselor who could support him through the stress. She didn't do it for him. She did it with him. She wanted him to feel capable, not dependent. The days turned into weeks. Lucas grew stronger. Emily grew calmer. She started to feel the strange sensation of being needed less, and it scared her more than she wanted to admit. For years, her life had been full of other people's needs, her marriage, her family, her nephew. Now she was learning what it meant to have space. It was quiet, but not empty. Then one evening, Lucas invited her to a volunteer event downtown. "It's nothing big," he said. "Just a community thing," Emily agreed. She wasn't sure why, but something in her wanted to see him in the world, not just in her home. The event was at a small park near the river, with lights strung up and people handing out blankets and hot chocolate. It felt like a different world from the one she'd been living in. That's where she met Daniel Brooks. Daniel was there helping organize volunteers, his voice calm and steady. He was in his early 40s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. He had moved from Vancouver recently, trying to start fresh after a divorce that left him tired but hopeful. When he introduced himself to Emily, she felt a strange sense of ease. Like meeting someone who didn't need her to be anything other than herself. They talked briefly that night, then again at another event, then over coffee after. Daniel didn't rush. He didn't try to fix her. He simply listened. He asked about her life, her dreams, her fears. And when she talked about Lucas, he didn't act surprised or judge her. He respected the bond she had with her nephew, and that respect made Emily feel safe. One afternoon, Lucas called her. "I need to talk," he said. Emily felt her stomach tighten. She thought of all the times she'd been asked for help and how quickly she'd stepped in. "Okay," she said. "Come over." Lucas arrived with his backpack and a look that made Emily's heart skip. He sat down and looked at her like he was about to say something important. Then he spoke. "I got accepted," he said. "The mentorship program in Vancouver. I leave in 2 weeks." Emily's eyes widened. She tried to keep her voice steady. "That's amazing." Lucas nodded, but he looked worried. "I don't want to leave you like this." Emily smiled softly. "You're not leaving me. You're leaving to become yourself." He looked down. "I'm scared I'll fail, and I'm scared I'll come back and everything will be the same." Emily reached out and placed her hand on his. "You won't come back the same," she said. "You'll come back stronger. Even if you fail, you'll learn. And you won't be alone." Lucas breathed out. "Thank you." The next weeks were busy. Emily helped him pack. They talked about budgets and flights and what to do when he felt homesick. Emily didn't cry in front of him. She didn't want to add guilt to his courage. But late at night, she sat alone in her living room and let herself feel the ache of change. She realized something then. For years, she had been waiting for love to arrive in a dramatic way, the way movies made it look. She had thought love meant being chosen, being rescued, being needed. But she was beginning to see love as something quieter, something that meant letting go when it was time, supporting someone's growth even if it meant losing control. On the night before Lucas left, they went out for dinner at a small diner he used to love as a kid. They talked about everything and nothing. Lucas joked like he used to. He laughed in a way that made Emily's eyes sting. After dinner, they drove to the river and walked along the path. The air was cold, but the sky was clear. Emily watched Lucas walk ahead and realized she was proud of him, proud in a way she had never been before. She felt like she was watching him become someone she could admire. "Emily," Lucas said suddenly, stopping and turning toward her. "I'm going to miss you." Emily's throat tightened. She nodded. "I'm going to miss you too." He hesitated, then said, "I don't know if I ever told you. You helped me more than you know. You didn't just help me get a plan. You made me believe I could be someone." Emily swallowed. "You always could be." Lucas smiled, then stepped closer. For a moment, Emily felt the old familiar pull of being the one who was needed. She felt the temptation to hold him close, to keep him safe forever. But she also felt the new strength she had built in herself. She took a breath and said, "You don't have to stay where it's safe. You deserve more." Lucas nodded. "I know." They stood there for a moment, quiet, letting the river and the night fill the space between them. Then Lucas hugged her. It was brief, but it was real. Not the kind of hug that clung. The kind that said goodbye with respect. When Lucas left, Emily didn't fall apart. She felt empty, yes, but she also felt something else, hope. She knew she had done the right thing. She had chosen the kind of love that didn't hold him back. She had helped him find his own path. And as she watched the days go by, she realized something even more surprising. Her heart had space again. It wasn't loneliness. It was room. Room for her own life. Room for her own future. Room for a love that didn't revolve around saving someone else, Then Daniel came back into her life in a new way. He didn't rush her. He didn't demand anything. He simply showed up, offering friendship first, then something deeper. Their connection grew naturally, like a plant finding sunlight. Emily found herself laughing again, dreaming again, feeling something warm in her chest that wasn't tied to anyone else's need. One evening, Daniel and Emily sat on her porch watching the sunset. The air was crisp, and the world felt calm. Daniel turned to her and said, "I'm glad you let me in." Emily looked at him and smiled. "I'm glad I did too." And in that moment, Emily understood the true meaning of love. It wasn't about being needed. It was about being chosen by someone who saw her, respected her, and wanted her for who she was, not because she fixed them, but because she was herself. And that was the most powerful kind of love she had ever known.